Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film and television. And you've listened to the podcast this week, you will know that we are talking about motorsport and in particular Formula One, the new F1 movie, Brad Pitt's love child, I want to say. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you understand what I'm talking about. So it's his movie all about F1 and his love of F1, even though for the purpose of the movie they're driving, what are they driving? F2 cars, I think, something like that. That they've been, but they're doing it, and this is the point that we're making. The podcast, we looked at everything from Grand Prix. I thought that really there's four movies that tick all of the boxes: Grand Prix, Le Mans, Days of Thunder, and this picture. Now, I'm not disputing that there will be many people out there who will have adored Ford versus Ferrari or movies of this nature. Right? I'm not taking anything away from that, but for me, these four kind of tick all of the boxes. And what we're going to look at it from here is we're going to take a little look at some of the camera positions, particularly, which I think, although we are referring to stunts and action on film and television, the editor, as we've mentioned before, the editor is the stuntman's friend. The coordinator breaks down the sequence and says, right, this is how we're going to do this, this, and this. All right, this is the shot you want to do? Fine. How do we do that? Well, we can do it like this and like this. And the editor then is in a position to cut it down to size. But the technology has come on leaps and bounds, enabling these type of shots to be made in the first place. So I'd like us to take a little look at it and explore what has gone on before and make comparisons between this movie and that movie. And if you haven't already seen it, well, we can whet your appetite for F1. All right, wait for the red lights to go out, and here we go. So, Grand Prix 1966. All I've done here is I've just put together a compilation of all of the shots on the vehicle in the cockpit themselves. There are so many in this movie. They outnumber those static shots enormously. This type of editing is remarkable. So the editor's working these shots afterwards. But in order for Frankenheimer to get the job done, he kind of cornered the market in this. You know, that's very clearly James Garner driving. He is, there are other professional motor racing drivers around him, but he is driving. His vehicle also has camera positions on them, and the front of the vehicle has camera positions too. So all of these shots that you're seeing, you are seeing because of the camera stuff that's going on and the remarkable editing that's taking place. So all I've done is I've just, taken those other shots out. And I think it really does bring home how important these type of shots are, particularly when you're doing something like motor racing. You have to have that POV shot. It wouldn't work without. You've got to have that there so that, you can see what's going on. And when you're watching it on the big screen, you get that exhilaration, I also think it's fascinating to look at these are some of my favourite types of F1 cars. This period, I love this period. Very dangerous period, of course. Safety was, hit and miss, to say the least. But nevertheless, it did get better to a point, but there was a time Jackie Stewart, of course, was one of those individuals who kept saying, look, something has to be done about this. This is that period in the movie where Garner's struggling through his gears. But the shots from behind from another vehicle, there's a camera vehicle chasing these two. Of course, The camera vehicle has to be another F1 car, because these cars are travelling at such an extraordinary rate of knots that it has to be that. They're not going to catch them otherwise. But all of these shots absolutely dependent on the capabilities of the director knowing exactly what he wants. Those professional drivers who are there in a capacity for safety as well, they're there because they're the people that can handle the vehicles, but the drivers also to keep the drivers safe. And they've been through extraordinary training. James Garner, of course, in point of fact, on the strength of this, then worked for Sam Peckinpah on a Steve McQueen picture called The Getaway as a driver. Not in the movie. He's not credited in the picture, but he is effectively a stunt driver working for Carrie Lofton, because Carrie had seen what he was capable of. And I think these are hugely important sequences. You see the world rushing by, you see all of this excitement going on, the immediacy of the gear change. Look, flick, 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 cut, boom. It's relentless, because it's a relentless motorsport. How many Nürburgring? I think somebody once said there was over 1,200 gear changes that happened on the old circuit of Nürburgring, which of course they don't use anymore. But 14 miles all the way round, for a lap. Just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And to watch the concentration, and to watch what goes on, and to see how incredibly important these camera angles are. I would much rather, me personally, I'd much rather have shots like that. Le Mans, on the other hand, very different situation, because you only get some of them. Majority of the shots that happen in Le Mans are these type of camera shots where the traffic is passing. You get some POVs, but not as many. So you get a great many more shots from the side, vehicles coming by. When you do, there's an immediate cutaway now to this. If I did a similar exercise with this that I did with Grand Prix, you'd almost have no footage at all of the POV shot. Everything is practically a shot at the side and the vehicle going by in one direction or the other. There's a couple of helicopter shots, I think, along the way. And of course what they did in this picture was they managed to use, and later on of course, which they also use in Days of Thunder, which we will look at, is they have some of the vehicles, the camera vehicle is dressed to look like a competing vehicle. So they have one of those vehicles that's there. One of the other vehicles, of course, was McQueen's very own Spider, which was one of those vehicles that was in a position to keep up with the Le Mans car. I mean, these are great shots, don't get me wrong, but the POV shots are massively important. This is on the camera vehicle, so this is one that can do the passing. Long straights. And I think that's why a lot of these shots at the side of the track probably work. These straights here at Le Mans are relentless. You can see them rising over the crest. There's the heat haze, and the shape of the car, as I said in the podcast, the shape of the car meant that being able to hide a camera system the way that you could with the POV shots in Grand Prix is maybe a little difficult. Well, they've had to accommodate that by adding cameras to other vehicles, having the existing camera vehicle, but also having additional, slightly smaller cameras and painted out so that they blend in with the bodywork on the race car itself. And I think it's massively important, it really is. But a lot of these shots, as I say, all of them here, with the exception of one or two, they are shots from the side, which is traditionally how you would have seen car chases, and motor racing things in the past. But of course, Frankenheimer has taken what he learnt from Grand Prix and took it right the way through to all of those movies that he was involved in. And of course, the one that really, really sticks to mind is Ronin, where he's taken the best of it. He's used motor racing drivers and stunt performers to do the very best he can in getting those shots and making them look complicated. And having the drivers, you remember the sequence there where they have De Niro behind the wheel of the car? Well, the actual driver, before the days of having a pod on the roof of the vehicle, the actual driver is in the passenger seat as far as they're concerned, but they are driving the car. So the camera is locked off on De Niro behind the wheel. He's doing all of the moving, and that's the important thing, to catch that. And here in Le Mans, I say, you get those shots from the vehicle down the track, but majority of them, long sweeping corners, long straights, and they can hide some of the cameras. But you get a lot of these shots, and then every once in a while, you'll get Steve McQueen behind the wheel. Days of Thunder was a slightly different situation because you had the opportunity. This is the pipe roll, a cannon roll, incidentally, comes through. There's impact, contact, and bang, and then the cannon is fired. Chick Bernhardt, the guy behind the wheel. Massive, great roll. Gary McClarty in charge of the action on this picture. But what they did there was they managed to get camera vehicles driven by professionals. So they've said, right, here's your opportunity to be in the pictures, boys, because it's the Oval. You know, this is a slightly different situation. This is the Oval. Do your best. What you're going to do here is try and get in front of that lead car. Try and get yourself around. The camera vehicle is the one where you've got to try and weave in and out of. So they were given, I think they were given the option of getting some bonus, but they were also given the option of being able to get themselves on the picture by saying, yeah, I was driving that car, that was me, and we took turns in doing it, and it was huge fun. So, you know, a lot of it, that crash, by the way, that cannon roll, was done for real, but wasn't done on a track, was done on an old abandoned airstrip, because they knew that there was going to be a fair amount of damage to the track itself if they'd done it for real. So that's what they tried to do, was to blend everything in together. And it's fascinating, it really is, to look at this, and it's some terrific, terrific shots. Low angle shots, and again, they've hidden some of the cameras in and around the bodywork. They're picking up some of those shots, just enabling you to take a look at it and go, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. But again, the editor really, really doing the very best. This shot I love because he's been told, don't go up on the banking, it's dangerous, and he's having just to rub the side of the wall as he comes past, but wins the race. And it's a really, really special movie. I'm not the biggest NASCAR fan, but you can understand why Tom Cruise got very excited when Paul Newman invited him along and he said he was going to make a motor racing movie and chose NASCAR. And then it brings us right up to date with F1. This is as revolutionary camera position wise as you can possibly imagine. This is Brad Pitt behind the wheel. That's not a green screen. There's none of that special effects going on. He is doing 100 plus miles an hour. All of the occasions when you see him behind the wheel, or when you see anybody behind the wheel, they are behind the wheel. And it is a real baptism of fire. Amazing job by the stunt crew. Gary Powell, of course, in charge of the action and the second unit director, and being given a wonderful job and really proving himself as a remarkable action director and getting some sensational footage. And I really urge you to go and see this on the big screen. If you're a fan of F1, go and see it on the big screen. Never mind the story. Enjoy the action, lap it up, and love it the way that we do. there we go. That was pretty exciting stuff. I love all of that. If you're a fan of F1, of course, you're probably gripped in the middle of the season at the moment, and the fact that this new movie has come along. It's doing very well at the box office, I must say. I'm getting a lot of people going, well, it's not really a very complicated story, is it? It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be a complicated story. If it was, I tell you what, if it was a complicated story, you would lose that excitement that you get from those in-cockpit position cameras. All that driving, the rush of... There's another good movie, by the way, Rush. But again, you would miss the rush of the excitement of all of this taking place and it happening right there in front of your eyes. And the stunt guys, of course, doing a remarkable job. Gary Powell, of course, always doing a spectacular job and picking the right people for the job to do that very, very special precision driving and working out those maneuvers. And of course, at the end of this maneuver, well, there will be an incident. There'll be a racing incident. There'll be an accident. We need to arrange that. And so there is some really clever stuff going on here. And as soon as we find out more about it, then of course we'll let you know. But I urge you to go and see it. I'm going to have a look at that. And with a bit of luck, next week, we're going to be talking to somebody rather special about Superman. The new Superman picture is out. And all being well, I get to speak to somebody who knows a fair bit about Superman and his involvement in the wonderful story of making a man fly. Remember the old adage was, you'll believe a man can fly. And we did. That extraordinary moment. Well, we're going to do a bit more comparison between then and now. And all being well, that will be for next week. Don't forget to click on the link. There's a Linktree link down there in the notes. Click on that. It'll take you to all of the social medias. If you don't already follow us on the podcast or on any of the other bits and pieces, go ahead and do so. Thank you very much indeed to all of those people who have subscribed here on YouTube. We are 12,000 strong now, which is sensational. We're averaging something in the region of about 65, 70 a week joining, which is terrific. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much indeed. Hugely grateful to all of those individuals who keep coming back and keep making comments and keep coming back and joining and wanting to find out more, and how some of those older 560, I think, videos we've got up there now, some of those earlier ones are getting a bit of traction again because they're being looked at from a brand new perspective by people who are just joining. So thank you very much indeed, and keep spreading the word. We're going to try and keep spreading the word too, and go bigger and better as time goes by. Hope you've enjoyed that. We'll do it all again next week, okay? And until then, it's bye for now.